to the interesting part, what we are going to do. So first, I need to gather everybody's consent in order to record this webinar. I hope everybody is okay. Please tell us if it is not the case, because we need everybody to be agreeing with this. So we suggest people to remove the cameras in order to lighten the bandwidth usage that we'll do. So we'll keep our faces as presenters, but feel free to remove your camera. We will not be watching you in there. And also, if you could please mute your microphones if you're not talking, in order to avoid echoes or other troubles that might occur. We're kind of a small committee, so I guess it should be all right, and we should have a nice presentation. And everybody, feel free to raise your hand, feel free to ask some questions on the chat, or raise your hand at any time. This is meant to be interactive, and as much as we love hearing each other's and ourselves speak, this is not the goal of this session. It is really to get also a conversation going in between and also within the presentation of the solutions that we'll do together with Vincent and Peter here. So just a small presentation. I am Gregor van Blum. I'm consultant at Nexell, specialized in nonprofit projects. So building nonprofit ecosystems in Salesforce, along with all the integration that we can put. And of course, donation forms, an online donation form, which we had the pleasure to already implement with Findock, that will be co-hosting this event today, in the persons of Vincent Rochebin and Peter van der Meij, that will do the technical demo. So Vincent will be your point of contact, of course, for follow-ups if you like the solution you see. And on the other side, Peter might be your contact when you actually implement the system, if there is some technical requirements, etc. So maybe a word from Vincent and Peter before I jump to a short presentation of Nexell and a recall of our last webinar, which led to this one.
Yes, thank you, Grégoire. So I will start with myself. So as Grégoire mentioned, I'm working with Findock for now 2 years. I am territory manager, which means I'm your main point of contact for non-technical conversation. That will actually allow me to introduce Peter in a few seconds. For the little background, I've only volunteered for non-profit organization in the past, but I had the chance to work with Salesforce.org, with multiple non-profit organizations in all the south of Europe, all of Europe, actually, for a little bit more than 4 years. So I had multiple conversations about the challenges they face, the expectation they might have in the future. And that led me to join Findock, and will, of course, introduce Findock as a company and as a solution in a few minutes. But yeah, this is just to let you know that I do understand how nonprofit works, and I understand your challenges, and that's what we're going to try to solve today during this presentation, or at least partly. And now I would like to introduce my colleague Peter. Maybe Peter, if you want to say a few words about yourself and your past experience.
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, my name is Peter van der Meij, a senior solution engineer at Findock. I've been with Findock from the very start in 2014, and before that I worked for a couple of years at a fundraising nonprofit myself, essentially learning the fundraising processes from the inside out. And well, I get to show you all the beautiful stuff that we built today, so really excited for that.
Thank you, Peter. You're on mute, Grégoire.
Thank you very much to both of you. I was muted, but I wanted also to thank Emma, our colleague, Emmanuel Fontenot, that organized all this and made the coordination. So a big shout out to her. And she made it all happen. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. So let's move on to to the following slide, just a short agenda. So we are still in the welcome and introduction that's going to last a little bit more. I'm going to do this little refresh of our last webinar that some of you might have attended about how to build a whole fundraising strategy and the specific item of donation form within your fundraising strategy. We'll then move to the solution demo that Peter will perform with all the great features of the Findock donation form system, and of course finish with some Q&A to gather all your questions. And of course, we're always available for follow-ups in terms of implementation or in terms of solution vetting, either with me for the first and with Vincent for the latest. So our little introduction. So first, who is Nexell? What do we do? So Nexell is a certified partner of Salesforce, either .org and .com. And we have this program, Nexell Angels, that is really the core of what we're doing right here today. It is really enabling NGOs to get a proper system in place and to get also some consulting company that can implement Salesforce while knowing their challenges, not just the technical support to configure something, but also help craft the strategy, help craft the processes that will be then implemented and translated into a technical structure that we built on Salesforce. But of course, we're not just tech guys. We are really here to understand the industry, to understand the challenges, of course, as Vincent said, and to try to address it with technical solutions or with processes improvements. We're the first partner in Europe, and we have about 40% of our activity that is directed with NGOs, and it is about 99% of my daily activities. I'm fully focused on the nonprofit sector. So as you see, we have a wide range of clients in terms of the industry that they are in. You can see what interest is right here with the nonprofit side, but also all sizes of organization. It is really important to know that adaptability of the Salesforce platform, but also of Nexell professionals, can allow from a very small organization. My smallest, there is really 2 people in that organization, while the biggest, there are more than 100 employees in the organization. So it can really get wide in terms of size, industry, and also locations, because we follow projects in France, some NGOs that are around the world, and we're able to allocate the resources and to be available everywhere, even if we're focused and fully located in Switzerland. So enough about us. What about the strategy and really the subject that interests us today, and how to build basically a strategy that will be addressed with a technical solution? Why we start like that? It is really because the major challenge we see in any project, whether non-profit, private sector, any project, people are expecting the solution sometimes to craft their processes and to craft a strategy, while we should really take it the other way around, build a strategy and find the solutions that can address this strategy and achieve this strategy. So of course, in that strategy, you need to fill in everything that you're gonna get, all the different items, and also the budget that might be related to it. So of course, prepare the potential of each items and what you need. And on those different items, there is of course the pricing of the solution, the cost per donation that you're gonna have, the cost of implementation. And then the solution vetting should take into account the agility to deploy ad hoc donation page easily. If it's one of the items that you have in your strategy, build emergency response pages, and being able to, as Peter will show us, quickly build it in about 3 minutes and make it live and available, and be able also to measure the efforts that you're going to do on those ad hoc pages of donation. Adapted also to your different payment channels. Who are your donors? Where are they located? What is the mean of payment they're going to use? We have most of the NGOs in Switzerland, for example, that are focused on paper slips for individual donations, but this is actually declining very slowly, and people need to anticipate to rebuild a new donor base and a donor base that is younger and that will most likely use some new channels of payment, such as, of course, the good old credit card on a donation form, but also Twix, and other post-finance related items, which must be acceptable if your fundraising focus on the individuals is within Switzerland. Of course, then the tax receipt that you may have for big organizations that might be on this call, you might be familiar also with fiduciary partner, allowing you to gather donation from another country in Europe, for example, and through the Transnational Giving Europe network, you can get a tax receipt to those donors, and the local partner will take a small commission. So really see how wide is your donor base geographically, what is their profile, etc. And all this should be there in your solution vetting. You don't pick a solution and then build your strategy, of course. And finally, other type of channels such as peer-to-peer fundraising, matching gifts within companies, being able to address that either with an out-of-the-box solution or having a solution flexible enough to be able to build ad hoc donation page in there. So on your individual fundraising strategy, we know what to take into mind when we have the solution in mind. So that is the things we need to understand with the strategy we'll build, with that light, the questions of the last slide that will be dependent on the solution we pick. So, of course, for very simple question that we ask within a workshop, but that is important to have in mind and to anticipate also in your reflection, because if you start a project without having this question clear, or at least started thinking about it, you're gonna stall your project, and there is gonna be a lot of bottlenecks to figure out those items before we can move on and do an implementation. So of course we can provide that, but that is really important to know those items when we start a project, in order to have the solution requirements that are gathered in the workshop phase. And before we implement, we need to figure out those items. So know your donor, reach your donor, engage them, and then nurturing. That's really also a key that we want to have there. And that is the whole point of getting a proper donation form embedded to Salesforce. It is not just receiving donation, it is also being able to take action to keep on receiving this donation in the long run, because one person that gave you once is most likely to give you twice. And to get this second gift is going to be way easier than to convince a whole new person and a whole new potential donor. So with Know Your Donor, that is what we do in Salesforce, qualifying the stakeholders. With whom they are, what do they like, what was that last donation focus on. So that with ad hoc donation page that we built, we need to be able to track what donation page they did a donation on. We'll see how to create that with Peter right afterwards. You track the record of everything, so that means, of course, the donations, but also something broader with the memberships they might have paid, the in-kind donation they might have given, or volunteering engagement. And if you don't have that yet, you can always leverage your existing donor to propose them some type of activities like that, such as can be as simple as putting the tax receipt into an envelope at the end of the year in order to send them out. You can get volunteers for this, and donors might be happy to just take an afternoon for that. Even within their company, you have a lot of solutions to help you with those small tasks and allow you your staff to focus on where they are the most efficient. Finally, of course, log the relationship with the stakeholders, track all the interaction, and always to know your donor, you need to keep your form lean. That is one thing we always see. Donation forms that asks questions like you're about to prepare for your mensuration when you see that many questions on a form. And that is really key to understand that when someone is on your website, you might have seen one of your actions, one of your posts of social media about what you did. That person is here to donate. That person is here to support you. Once they take this decision to support you, you need to make the way from this decision being taken to the moment you get the payment as short and as lean as possible, in order to keep the focus of the person in their gut feeling. This is a great project, I want to support this, it matches my value, and I want to do that. If you get back in their brain by asking them, oh, you think about potentially giving us on another day, how did you find us, and things like that, those can be nice information together, but it can also increase the rate between people getting on your donation form and people actually making you a donation. And this gap is something that should be taken as small as possible, because once a person is on your donation form, that means he wants to support you, and you shouldn't put any barriers to do that. Second items, reach them. So how do we get in touch with them? Of course, the existing one and the new one. So as I was giving the example before, reaching them on social media, they get the route back to your donation form. Reaching the existing database with newsletters, and give call to action with an easy access to the donation form. Different campaigns to outreach, so that can be really on the acquiring with new donors. And of course, emails and cold calling, which is very time consuming. So it needs to be targeted. And that is something you can do, for example, in existing donor that gave last year, but not this year, and focus on those people at the end of the year to match your fundraising objective on the private level. Any questions for that? Do not hesitate to interrupt me. Of course, I'll never say it enough, but do not hesitate to jump in if there is anything unclear or that you would like some precision on. Okay, brilliant. So, almost to the end of the strategy. How do we engage them? So that is really, as I said, on the newsletter, so the medium to get them, then you need to engage them in there. So reach out and give a call to action. Always give a call to action. And as we said, with keeping it lean, the moments between the information you give them and that is going to make them want to support you, you need to give this call to action, and then keep it the path as short as possible and as straightforward as possible, all the way up to the support, which is the confirmed donation, the payment that arrived in there. Also, like one little item there, one time versus recurring donation. Recurring donation is harder to manage, of course, but recurring donation on the long run is really there that you get the fewer churn rates. So the people that are donating once but not staying on a 3 years period, even if on the first year you might not get as much with a recurring donation, on the 3 years term, you get some people regularly in touch with you. And this is something really important, because it also gives you visibility on the cash flow that you're going to have. Because if a recurring donation is in place, you know for sure that in the next 6 months, for example, you're going to have at least 80% of those recurring donations coming into your bank account. While if you get a 1,000 donation 1 year, the year after, it is more about 60% that you are sure that this donation will be renewed. So that really gives the time to some matters to think about. Recurring donation is always the go-to there, and you need to be able to support this. And it is the case of the Findock solution that manages enhanced recurring donation, the last version of it in the nonprofit success pack. Finally, also with peer-to-peer, so peer-to-peer fundraising, use people to fundraise for you, basically. So having solutions and donation page that can be built around that, can be built custom, or it can be out of the box, and it can be mapped to your Salesforce. And finally, engage your current supporters on other channel. As I said before, company matching. Use them for volunteering, or help them support you by promoting you with a donation form that could be built right for them, or that could be accessible on specific campaign, and use them as supporters for you. Last but not least, and I have to say one of the most important, because all the efforts you put in, as we said, to build all the donation form, to acquire new donors, and get this path as lean as possible all the way up to the support, it never ends there. of course, there is a tax receipt to send and acknowledgement letters, but it is also nurturing your donor, cherishing as he was your biggest contributor, and make them feel like they are your biggest contributor. And that way you can really reduce the cost of a renewal, reduce the cost of all your donations by having more renewal than acquisition, and not having to start from scratch every year and build a new donor database by using and leveraging the existing that existing thing. I put this quote that's been retaken by Arnold Schwarzenegger as well: "Work like hell and advertise." I won't do his accent there because I might fail it, and I'm still afraid of him, of course. But it is really one thing to know: when you work hard, when you do the right thing, you need to tell the public, and you need to tell your donor about it. It's not because they didn't require a complicated grant agreement with some deliverables, with an interim final report, etc. It's not because they didn't require that they don't want to know what you did with their money. And you don't need to say, with that cent, we did this. It is not as granular as this, but you want to tell them thank you, and you want to tell them what they achieved by being part of your project. And this is what people want when they donate. They don't donate just to get a tax receipt. Basically, if you think like that, that's not the most leverage you have. They want to be a part of your project. They want to be a part of the great work that you're providing. Finally, acknowledgement is an important as payment processing. So as I said, sending a thank you letter, show professionalism, show gratefulness, and if you can, personalize a bit the items by getting just an email that say, "Oh, thank you for donating to that particular campaign." This is very easy to set up, and this already gives them, oh, this is not just a bot that triggered me a thank you message. They actually care. So that is about it for my side, and I can gladly hand it over to Vincent and Peter that are going to present you the particular solution of Findock.
Thank you very much, Grégoire. So first of all, do you hear me well? Yes, that's fine. I'm unmute. So first of all, I would like to introduce just very, very briefly Findock and a few observations that led us to create Findock as a solution. The very first thing, so Findock is a technology company based in the Netherlands, and we've created our first solution in 2014, which was specifically dedicated for the nonprofit sector to manage natively in Salesforce payments. So we built this solution with the help of nonprofits, observing nonprofits, and nowadays, we have more than 150 nonprofits in Europe, in whole countries of all size, with different kind of resources, different missions, that are using Findock to manage their fundraising and to manage their payments natively in Salesforce. So if I have to resume Findock, besides the technology aspect and the functionalities, I want to talk about the philosophy and the motto that we have. As Grégoire said, it's very important to engage, to personalize the experience for the donors, to keep it lean, but smart. And this is why we believe at Findock, and this is actually what has led us to create Findock, that payments, especially when we're talking about donation, should be a customer-centric process. And as such, it should be managed from the earth of the customer profile, of the donor profile within your CRM. And for that, we choose Salesforce, which we believe is the #1 CRM when we talked about such process. If you can pass to the next slide, Grégoire, I would appreciate it. Thank you. And I will let you keep going. So first, a few observations we've made in France. So Salesforce.org, which is the branch looking after nonprofits at Salesforce, has been conducted a survey across multiple nonprofit organizations, again, all size, different mission, different countries. And they've observed a few interesting trends on the nonprofit market, especially when we're talking about donations. The first one is that the demands for help, for programs, is increasing drastically. Amidst the COVID-19 crisis, it's been going on and going on, which means more pressure on you, nonprofits, as well. the states, the public services are delegating more and more responsibilities to the nonprofit world. And that means that you need more resources, you need more funds to assume those responsibilities. Now, if you want to go on the next numbers, thank you, Grégoire. We also observe massive, drastic change in terms of resources and the source of those resources, those funds that you receive every month, every week, every day, every year. And we see a massive shift between institutional giving to individual giving. So more donors means more complexity for you because you manage a bigger number of donors, you need to engage more proactively with them, and this is extremely complicated. Just to give you an example, there's been an increase of 13.7% of individual giving over the course of the last year. And actually, online giving through a donation form has been multiplied by 2.3%. But there is also more expectations coming from individual donors. And your supporters, your constituents, they've been more than 57% to actually say that they would easily stop giving to a nonprofit and switch to maybe another mission, another nonprofit, if they experience, I don't want to say ungratefulness, but as Grégoire said, a thank you message is the least you can do when you receive money. But also they want more engagement. And this is extremely, extremely important to us. And Grégoire, also commitment. I think you mentioned it. This is extremely, extremely important to report towards nonprofits and to express your gratitude and explain how you're using this money. Engagement is extremely important. And now trends are actually not specifically playing in your favor, but that shows that that validates the shift to digital. This shift is now. And organization needs to adopt technology and invest in new model of working and engaging with supporters. And one of these main models is around payment. Payment is the lifeblood of a nonprofit. This is the core of your fundraising process. This is how you measure. This is the metric to measure your success and to measure what kind of help and programs you can build to help and support constituents. If you want to go to the next slide, Grégoire. Thank you. Unfortunately, payments represents a lot of challenges for any nonprofit. First of all, and maybe in this call, some of you are already using Salesforce. Salesforce is a fantastic platform. It's a fantastic CRM, but payments are not natively integrated to Salesforce. And this is actually the core of what Findock does. We are just this layer, extra layer on top of Salesforce, built on the Salesforce technology to bring payments into your CRM. Also, payments are extremely complex. There is, of course, donation forms, but there is external fundraising platform, fulfillment agencies, peer-to-peer platform. This is extremely complicated to keep track with the different source of payments and to integrate and reconcile them in one place. Also, change is constant. I think this is proper to the fintech industry. There is a new method of payments, new trends of payments as well. I think that's people in France, for example, that use checks all their life, they had with COVID-19 to get into digital payments. For example, there is QR codes, obviously, that are becoming more prevalent. And when we're talking about payments, so we need to be flexible enough to adapt to this change in the payment landscape. And then, as Grégoire mentioned a few times, it's important to engage more proactively. It's important to know your donors and to ask yourself these questions before you establish the strategy. And for that, because payment is one of your main metrics, you need to make payments have meaning. And this is why you should hold all this information within your CRM. Grégoire, next slide. Yeah, thank you, Grégoire. So I was mentioning the difficulties when you're trying to conciliate new payment methods, online payment method, digital payment methods with, for example, cash, checks, offline payment methods. Right now, this is just divided in multiple silos of information, and it's not in real time. You're probably spending a lot of hours manually inserting all those payments within your accounting on your CRM system. If you do, sometimes even in Excel spreadsheet, even for major nonprofits. I just want to say it openly. So we believe that because payment is a customer-centric process, a donor-centric process, it should be held within the CRM and within Salesforce with Findock on top. And next slide, Grégoire, thank you. Thank you. And this is what Findock does. So we manage the payments in Salesforce, in your CRM, in the back-end system, and we're trying to give meaning to this information, to this data. We're trying to give you full control, but as well flexibility to adapt, switch, and change payment methods in a matter of minutes, hours. And we want to give you this flexibility and not you being static and stuck in a situation where you will need to engage a lot of resources to adopt a new payment methods, etc., etc. But then also we need to be able to integrate payments. How do I get payment into my CRM? And this is actually what Peter will show you in a few seconds. And that's going to be actually connecting the dots between the best practice introduced by Grégoire from a strategic point of view when we're talking about donations and payments, and what happened in a CRM to engage and to manage those payments. So Peter, maybe I will give you the ends, and maybe just also to be more pragmatic, we can start. But for now, do you have any questions for me? No? So we can obviously reply to your questions afterwards. Oh, yes, Louis. Yes, Louis. If I think you're on mute, if you want to unmute yourself. Okay, maybe we can reply to your questions afterwards, Louis.
Yes, I think there is a problem with Louis' microphone.
Oh, okay. No problem. Take your time. No.
No.
Maybe okay, afterwards. That's all right, Louis. No problem.
We'll keep you in line for the questions. So shall I give you the hand to share your screen, Peter?
Yeah, please do.
The floor is yours.
Okay. So, well, thanks for giving me the ability to showcase some of the Findock functionality. And what I'd actually like to do today is take you through the setting up of an online giving page, make sure it actually works, link everything to a campaign, showcase some of the reporting and dashboard functionality, a follow-up email. All of that will be in the system. The follow-up email I already configured, but we're going to see it in action right here from the system. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about how do we deal with payments that fail. So Grégoire spoke about nurturing your donors, and part of that might also be following up on payments that don't go through. If you join a book club every month or something and you don't show up for 1 month, it's nice if somebody notices and sends you an email or a WhatsApp or whatever saying, hey, where were you? And the same is true for donations. If your donor fails to process the payment because of insufficient funds, it's nice to know that you care and that you send out a notification. Hey, we can see that you didn't donate. What is going on? But that's a little bit later on. For now, I want to start off with creating a giving page. And this is going to be the URL that my giving page is going to be on. And as you can see, there's nothing there right now, but we're going to create something together. So I've created a placeholder, and once I go to Builder, I can choose from one of two templates. So these templates are professionally designed by a design agency and will give you a head start on building your page. So let's select the Activate template, and now the system built my page for me. Now, of course, this is not what we're going for in the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a page for a fictional charity called Save Tigers. And to that end, I have some assets, including a logo, save and continue, and I'm going to change the background image as well. That already looks way different. Now I have some text that I also want to put in there. And our call to action. And one thing that is known to be quite important is telling people why they should donate. Even on your donate page, it is good to inform donors, what are you doing? What is the problem? And so essentially, what is the issue that you're working on solving? And what is your direction for solving it? How are you going to fix the issue with the funds entrusted to you? And too often we see pages that essentially don't have any narrative, that just assume that people want to donate without actually telling people why they should donate. And still, even if they are on your donation page, it is still important to essentially understand why I would want to donate to your charity. Now, we're already partially there, but the color scheme doesn't quite match. So I still want to change the color scheme a little bit. Let me pull up the right color. I'm going to change the background color. I'm going to change the color of my Donate Now text.
I just want to precise that this is in Salesforce. This is not an external page or an external system.
Excellent point. Thank you, Vincent. Yes, this manager is part of the Findock application within Salesforce. This can be accessed by anyone that you give access within your Salesforce environment. So if you have a marketeer or a fundraiser that doesn't need to have actual web development experience or anything, but just knows how to upload images and put in a little bit of text, they can create pages themselves, meaning that the turnaround time on creating a new page can be really, really quick. Where were my details? Now, one of the things that is also considered a best practice is, let's switch this to Frank's, putting in impact narratives. So if you tell the donor, look, if you donate 20 francs, then we might be able to do this with your money, help anti-poacher patrols. But if you donate a little bit more, then we can maybe put up a wild cam to track tiger movements. This has been shown to actually increase the likelihood that people will donate higher amounts because they can see what will be done with their money, and they might say, hey, I'm actually more interested in funding a wild cam rather than just anti-poacher patrols. Same goes for the monthly amounts. And of course, we can change the monthly amounts as opposed to the one-time amounts, because, well, one time you might ask for a little bit higher amounts, whereas with the monthly, they might be a little bit lower, but since we will get them each month, the overall value will still be higher. So that is it for amounts and things like the currency.
If I just may add something on those drops, there is really two ways to do it. Either you say different items of what you're going to do, and sometimes you actually have the actual prices of what you have, and that is really something that enables people to project themselves in what you could do with the gift. Just know that it is not contractual. You don't need to buy gloves with the items that you got on the 10 francs donation to buy a box of gloves. So really just help people project into what they're contributing in terms of the solid item that you're going to have. It can be salary, it can be activities, it can be items or goods, but do not hesitate to add that. And this is really a good feature of the system.
So once we've set up how much we want to ask for and the currency there, etc., what are we going to ask from our donors in order to make that donation? And as Gregor already mentioned, this should be kept to a minimum. So we don't want to ask for home address details because that just takes too much time. We want to keep the person in the flow and be able to respond quickly.
And usually, sorry, Peter. Usually, this is information you can gather afterwards when you decide to re-engage with your donors. First, get the payments, and then you know that they're interested. They want to be informed about the campaigns that you have. Reach out to them, and they will be a lot more willing to share information with you.
Yeah. Now, of course, even if you don't want to ask too much, it is not a wrong thing to ask, for instance, for an opt-in to a newsletter to make it really easy to do that. And maybe you can ask for a mobile phone number. Just don't make it a required field. It has to be an optional field for people to put in their mobile phone number. So let's save that. Privacy text. You will need to tell people, hey, we're taking your privacy serious, because especially in today's climate, where there has been so many talks about data leaks, etc., it is good to inform people what your privacy policy is, how you treat their data, ideally with a link. So here is a link to our privacy policy, and then make the privacy policy a link to your actual privacy policy. And then we get to the heart of what a payment form, of course, is. So we want to configure payment options. Now, in my environment, I have a lot of different payment options already installed, and these are just as easy as installing essentially an additional processor package. So we say, hey, I want to support Stripe. So I install Stripe into my environment, and then I get the ability to add things like the credit card payment method that is supported by Stripe. We also have packages, for instance, for Safer Pay, so I can include the e-finance solution as well. We can include PayPal. And is there anything else we might want to add? Well, not at this time. So this is for one-time payment methods. And we can do the same for recurring payment methods, because not all payment methods are, of course, available for recurring payments. Twint is a very good one-time payment method, but doesn't work as a recurring solution. So for recurring things we might want to do is say, hey, we want to add in LSV direct debit. And maybe we also want to add in credit card via Stripe. This one for my direct debit. So this would be my account with the bank where I will process my direct debits. And for the recurring payment methods, we're going to set direct debit as the default because it's the cheapest option we have. And for one time, well, let's set credit card as the default. Once we hit save, We can configure a thank you page, either be it in the page itself or linking to an external URL, maybe on your own website. And finally, we add things to a campaign, and we can even track an origin. So if we have multiple giving pages, or even giving pages and other donation pages or donation channels that link to the same campaign, we can use origin to distinguish this. So giving page 1. And with that, we're ready to publish. So if we take a look at our page one more time before we hit the button, yeah, that looks all good. I'm going to hit publish. So remember, the page wasn't there before, but once I refresh, the page is here right now. Now, I'm going to actually put the URL of that page in the chat. And I have a QR code as well, if you prefer that. So this page is actually out there on the internet right now. So you can actually go to this URL or scan the QR code and have a try. Have a look at that page and just try to enter some details. For the payment options, one thing that you can do is use credit card and then use the credit card you see on screen, which will allow you to pass the credit card verification check, because this is a test environment and no actual money will be deducted from your account or credit card. And this is a credit card that will actually work in this environment. I hope everybody had a chance to have a look at that. And if not, I will put it into the chat as well. Expiration date 06. So the details are in the chat if you need them. So let's actually run through the flow together. So I'm going to select 30 francs, hit next. I'm going to put in some donor details, in this case for Rachel. And yes, I'm going to sign up for the newsletter and choose credit card as my payment method. Now, what is interesting to know is that at this point, even before I complete the transaction, we already have a record of the donation. So if I go to Salesforce, so this is the backend view that a back office employee or a fundraiser would see when they log into Salesforce, and I refresh my view, we can see that there's already a whole list of donations because you all contributed to the campaign by making donations on the page. And at the top here, we can see the donation that I made. And we can see that the transaction is here, even though it's not yet authorized. So if Rachel fails to authorize the transaction, we still have a record of her attempt to donate, which means that we can follow up even if she doesn't complete it. The so-called abandoned cart processes. So let me actually go through with this and complete the transaction, which will take us to the thank you page. And if we refresh here, we can see that the status updated to posted. Now, what that means is that we can send out thank you emails right here from the CRM, because we have real-time information in Salesforce about the donations that have taken place. We don't need to have a separate thank you journey from a website that doesn't really know anything about the donor. We can all combine it and really send out something where we know who the donor is, and we showcase that we know who she is and that we understand the previous engagements that she might have had with us. If she is a volunteer, mention that in the thank you email. If she attended an event, or if a registration is coming up for an event she attended last year, mention that as part of the communication. make it a really hyper-personalized thank you email, not just a generic confirmation of the donation. So I actually set up a flow really easily that takes maybe 5 minutes to configure in Salesforce to send out a thank you message. And for those of you that have actually completed the flow in its entirety, you will have received something very similar to this, where we say, hey, thank you for participating. Your online donation has been recorded. Now, of course, this isn't the most beautiful message there is out there. It is very plain. It is very simple. And I'm sure all of you can do a way better job than I can. But at the same time, it has been proven that plainer emails that look like an email that you would just send out to a colleague or to another person actually perform better than the very highly designed with a logo at the top, etc. emails, because those emails tend to invoke images of spam messages or commercial or whatever. Whereas this is more of a personal communication saying, hey, thank you so much. Awesome that you wanted to donate to us today. That is also why it's important to make it as personal at the bottom as possible. So put a name there. Don't put our fundraising team or whatever. Just put a name there. Make it a personal email, not only in the way that you write it to the person, but also in the way that you sign it. And this real-time update is not only true. Let me see if there are others. Yeah, we're slowly getting it in. This real-time update is not only true on a line-by-line basis, but if you're running a campaign, you want updates quickly. You want to understand how well your campaign is doing. And the way that we do that is by using dashboards. So I have configured a dashboard which looks at this particular campaign to see, hey, how well are we doing? And it tracks the information that comes in. It tracks the payment methods that are being used. It tracks the overall amount that is coming in. And we could add additional reporting dimensions to this, such as origin or channel, etc. What this allows you to do is fine-tune your campaign minute by minute as the information is coming in. So if you can see that certain pages are performing better or certain payment methods are performing better than others, then it's very good to actually push those maybe. Or if you see that one channel is underperforming, well, maybe you need to change that channel a little bit. Maybe the ads that you were running on that campaign just weren't as convincing. And you can actually redistribute your resources to channels that are high-performing channels. So it really gives you real-time insight and the ability to fine-tune your campaign as it is running, rather than having to wait 1 or 2 days for the data to become available. So far, we've essentially only spoken about one-time donations. But what about the recurring? So as Gregor mentioned, recurring donations are great because it is capture once, that donor, and then, well, you can collect the money every month. But it does come with some management. And what we have done at Findock is we try to take that management essentially out of the equation to make it as easy as possible to run any type of recurring donation. And the way that we have done that is by allowing you to schedule your monthly collections. So this is something that you set up once, for instance, for direct debit, and this is one specifically for SEPA direct debit, but this will work for any type of recurring payment method. So we can do this with recurring credit card, with Swiss direct debit, with LSV, with anything you can think of. And once I've set this up and I've told the system, hey, if it's a non-processing date, I want you to move it forward or push it back a little bit to make sure that we don't try to collect on a Sunday, for instance. And we've said, well, we want to collect on a specific day of the month. We want to start at that date and then have it run indefinitely. And once you've done that, you're done. You don't have to do another thing. The system is going to automatically collect the money every month. And you're not just limited to one schedule. You can set up as many schedules as you'd like. So you can have a direct debit alongside a recurring credit card. And maybe you want to run a secondary direct debit run in a month to recollect failed direct debits. And you can do that. You can add that extra direct debit schedule to the mix and have the maybe the recollection run on the 25th of the month or something like that. So recurring payments become really, really easy because it's just a matter of setting up the schedule and it will run in the background. Final thing that I wanted to touch on today is what happens if payments don't go through, because direct debits might fail. It varies a little bit from country to country, but overall, we can see that charities face a reversal percentage of between 1 and 3%, with outliers going as high as 5 or 6%, which is a lot of money if you don't collect that. And as I said at the beginning, it is good to remind donors, hey, we missed your payment this month, because it makes them feel valued. It makes them feel like their donation actually matters. And if they don't hear anything from you, then they might start to question, okay, do they even notice if I don't donate for a month? So it is good to reach out. And what I'm going to do here is I have a direct debit transaction that has been collected. So you can see that the status is collected, the open amount is 0, and we have a payment linked to it with SEPA direct debit. So this is a SEPA payment that we did. Now, what happens if we receive a reversal? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reprocess my reversal transaction. So this is a transaction that we got from the bank saying, hey, this direct debit that you did actually failed, and here is why. So the why is the reason code. And the reason code in this case, AM04, which is a standardized reason code, tells us that there were insufficient funds on the bank account, which might happen from time to time. If you have to buy a new washing machine or a new dryer or a new car or whatever happens, sometimes, well, it's just not there. Let me refresh that. And as you can see, now that I refresh my transaction, the installment, there's a secondary payment here. So now there's a secondary payment to cancel out the first one. This is actually for minus 25 euros. We don't want to remove the initial one because, well, this might even be in a different month. If it's in January, it might even be in a different year. And you don't want to remove that from the equation because then you might have trouble reconciling CRM with your accounting system. So what we do is we add an additional payment to cancel out that initial successful one. We also update the status and we store why the transaction failed. And we can even include things like a explanation on what is going on for people that might not be familiar with the reason codes themselves. And the beauty of this is that this can be used now as a starting point for an automated process. And the automated process that we're going to do is we're going to send out an email containing a link for Rachel to pay for her donation using a different payment method. That link is already on the record. So it's just a merge field that is on the object itself that can be very easily included in an email template. It can even be included in a direct mail template if you'd like. And this payment link is again managed from Salesforce. So this is our Paylink builder, which is very similar to the giving page builder that I showed you earlier. However, there are some slight differences. Now, there's no text here because, well, it's just a payment page. And also, there's no currency or amount selection. The currency is taken dynamically from the original transaction. Since this is a donation in euro, the payment link will also be in euro automatically. The amount is, of course, already set, all of that. But we still have to configure payment methods, etc. And if we're happy with what we're seeing, well, we can publish it. And let me find my email, actually. And we can see that the system already sent out a notification saying, hey, Rachel, something went wrong with your donation, including, of course, not only information from the donor record itself, but also information about the transaction that actually failed. And here's our payment link. And if I click on that link, we are being taken to the page that we just configured. So this is the Paylink page. And let's use credit card again. And in my environment, I typically tend to use Stripe for credit card processing. And one of the nice things about Stripe is that they come with Google Pay and Apple Pay integration out of the box. So I can simply click on my Google Pay button, hit pay, and authorize the transaction. Once the payment has been captured, it's going to tell me, hey, thank you, payment accepted, you're all done. Now, where in the initial demo flow, where we talked about online donations, we created a new donation for this person. Here, that should not be the case because we are not creating a new donation. We're paying for a previously failed donation. So rather than creating an entirely new record, in this case, if we go back to our transaction and refresh it, here, the system will actually find the original transaction that initiated the payment and the pay link and link the payment to that installment. So we know not only that Rachel paid 25 euros using her credit card, we also know why, related to what transaction. So if this donation was linked to a specific campaign or a specific project, that means that the new income or the recaptured income will be linked to that same project and that same campaign. So this is a donation that started out as a direct debit transaction, failed due to insufficient funds, but was ultimately collected with a credit card payment via a Paylink. All of this completely automated without any manual intervention from the charity side. This is what we can do once we set up intelligent flows and make use of what we have in terms of data and engagement tools. Let's do one final refresh of this to see if there's anything new here. No. And I think with that, Findock Nexell, I'm going to hand it over back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Peter. Maybe time for questions. So Louis, you had the questions. Maybe if your mic works now.
I think it's okay now.
Yes, perfect. We can hear you.
Right. So, as everybody knows, last night we have a 6-hour. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
6-hour problem with Facebook, and the big problem was that Facebook rely on Facebook, which is relying on Facebook, which is relying on Facebook. And I see this problem now with Salesforce, with this device. I will not ask this question yesterday morning, okay? It's because of last night outage and the fact that we can separate and do a connection between two different services with different hosting policy and etc. It's a safety. It may be a safety for the crowdfunding site. Is it possible to have this service running on separate domain, or you see, to separate Salesforce for a while in case of problem of one side? No?
Yes, so on that side, indeed, you have those pages that will be hosted through Heroku on Salesforce domain. The thing is, yes, every system can crash. But on the Salesforce side, you can imagine the number of dependencies and the number of people that are there. Everything is like well segmented, and getting a broad crash of Salesforce, I don't have any to my knowledge. Of course, it is a risk on any type of tool, and you might want to diversify in a sense. But on that side, it is also good to rely on the most reliable data. And in there, you have some people at Salesforce that are testing the security of it every day, about 170 people. And you have a full security on that side, and also a backup system of the servers. If you're in Europe, you have the data in Germany, and the backup in France. And so there is always a possibility to shift and to have this constantly available system in there. So yes, indeed, I will not lie to you. There is a risk on anything, but you can manage that. And yes, thank you, Vincent. You can check on this. You have also the historical part of the different down services, and to my knowledge, it's never happened yet. But like touching wood, of course. But yeah, the idea is really to have your system on something reliable, on something that you can update easily, that you can move on along with your processes, and not focus everything on the same technology ideally, but just know that Salesforce itself is several technology. There is Heroku for public pages. There is the different instances for Salesforce. There is dozens of different instances in Europe that are working basically independently. So the DNS trouble that was with Facebook, they all work on the same technology, all those free services, and worldwide on the same basically technology, and with non-segmented servers. That is not the case on the technology we're talking about right here. I hope that that answers your question. But yes, indeed, it is a great fear. For example, putting all your donation form through Facebook, that would have been a trouble yesterday if you were launching a specific item.
And this is I would like
peer-to-peer solution. You see, for example, now I am coding a soft to synchronize clouds, because I want to have a bidirectional clouds. So you see, I think now to rely on technologies, we need to have backups. And for example, now my system, we can redeploy them in 4 hours on a different computing center. Because we have a big problem in Switzerland last year. A few companies were totally dead because they did. It's just that me, I am always, now with all the leaks, all the stuff that we have, relying on the same base for all the services, it's scaring me a bit. Voilà.
Okay, you're talking about the fire that happened last year in Strasbourg, where you're talking.
Non, il y a eu pire. Il y a eu un autre computing center. It was a fire alarm, and it was in Switzerland. Okay. And we have enrolled also this data leak something like 3 weeks before.
I think, Louis, because when we talk, of course, this is not specific to Findock, but I take the responsibility to say that when we're talking about security and I mean, Salesforce, they've put a whole policy around backup different data centers that I think we should take this conversation probably a bit offline because this is a real topic of conversation.
And no, the fact that Salesforce is so big is the danger. Because if I am a hacker, I will prefer to fight for big actors. I will do more cash.
Yes, that is why actually the system is segmented like that, because to get access to a specific instance of Salesforce or crash it all the way, Yes, of course, and that is why also you have the resources of as I said, 170 hackers that are daily trying to break the system. Of course, as a player like Salesforce, you need to find all the different channels that could get you attacked. As a hacker, only needs to find one. Of course, yes, that there is those items, but just know that as an NGO, you're not the main target in there. If somebody is attacking Salesforce, is not to gather NGO data. And on the second hand, because of the sensitivity of the data that is stored on Salesforce by the Fortune 500 clients that there is, which are mostly using this tool, there are a lot more dependencies than on a specific port or thing that you'll build yourself, that would be screened and scanned as well with the different hacker that could attack everything. The technology you could build yourself on on-premise server, even with different backup, etc. You might not have the same level of security that there is of Salesforce, even if it's a target. And as you said, transferring in 4 hours to another system, within the 4 hours, you leave plenty of time already to get all your data encrypted, to get all your data not available anymore. Right now, you have 2 physically distant server with Salesforce, and you can also have some additional, as you were saying, bidirectional. There is some solutions such as own backup that allows you to every 10-15 minutes scan your entire database, scan all changes, and get ready to mitigate some problems that could occur with an urban error internally, data loader fail, data deletion that was not wanted. You can get back at any time to the snapshot that was taken of your database and segment to restore only the part that was deleted, for example. So really, yes, of course, there are some risks, but what recommendation I would do to mitigate those risks at the most is to have something with Salesforce and additional services such as own backup in order to get a fully bulletproof system that can be restored at any time and that is being scanned every day.
Thank you, Grégoire. So I think we should wrap up because I think people like to go to lunch.
Thank you all for your attention. Thank you, Peter and Vincent. It was really great to see this thing in motion and seeing how much we can do without any coding. And it's really a pleasure to follow up with attendees to discuss specifically about a donation form and specifically with a call we can get all along with Vincent. And we'll be happy to get you nice donation form easily set up with no coding, mostly to be able to easily and leaningly create some donation page.
Thank you very much, Grégoire. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And I'm looking forward to speaking to you separately if you have any interest for it.
Yes, thank you everyone for attending. You will receive a survey where you can ask if you're interested to get back in touch with one of us about different topics. So have a nice day and stay tuned.
Enjoy your meal.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye, and thank you very